Before the world ever knew the name Dior as a symbol of luxury and timeless beauty, it began with a boy named Christian Dior, born on January 21st, 1905, in the coastal town of Granville in Normandy, France. His family was wealthy and expected him to enter diplomacy or politics. But from childhood, Christian was drawn to something entirely different: beauty, imagination, and art. His childhood home, a seaside villa called Les Rhums, became one of the most important emotional influences of his life. The pink and gray tones of the house, the ocean wind, and the carefully designed garden all quietly shaped his future fashion language. While his family pushed for stability, Christian was secretly sketching dresses, experimenting with shapes, and imagining silhouettes. He was not a designer yet, but he was already thinking like one. In 1928, he opened an art gallery in Paris, showcasing works by Pablo Picasso and Salvador Dali. But in 1929, the Great Depression forced it to close. He found himself selling fashion sketches to newspapers, working as an illustrator, struggling but growing. In the early 1930s, he joined designer Robert P. Gay's fashion house, where he finally learned how garments are constructed, how fabric behaves, and how silhouettes interact with the human body. His artistic vision was becoming practical skill. Then World War II interrupted everything. Called into military service and living through the German occupation of France, Christian spent part of this period in rural France. And while it was deeply painful, it gave him something unexpected: reflection. He later described how hardship and the absence of luxury helped him understand the true emotional value of beauty. Fashion, in his mind, was not decoration. It was emotion made visible. When the war ended in 1945, Paris was starving for beauty. People were exhausted from years of restriction and scarcity. They wanted elegance again. They wanted to feel something again. That atmosphere became the perfect stage for what was about to happen. Christian met a powerful French businessman named Marcel Boussac, known as the Cotton King. Instead of reviving someone else's fashion house, Christian proposed something bolder: a completely new house under his own name. It was a risk, but Boussac saw something extraordinary and agreed to finance it. And so, in 1946, the House of Dior was officially born at 30 Avenue Montaigne, Paris, an address that would become legendary in fashion history. From the very beginning, Christian Dior was not just making clothes. He was restoring something the war had stolen: femininity, softness, elegance, and emotional beauty. Every stitch carried intention. Every detail mattered. And on February 12th, 1947, he presented his first official collection to the world. The reaction was immediate. Fashion editor Carmel Snow looked at the designs and said, "It's a new look," and that phrase became history. The new look rejected the boxy, practical silhouettes of wartime fashion and introduced soft shoulders, tightly cinched waists, and long flowing skirts. Fabric was used generously. Curves were celebrated. Movement was restored. But it was more than clothing. It represented recovery, hope, and the return of beauty after years of destruction. For millions of women around the world, it was transformative. Dior wasn't just designing dresses, he was redefining how women saw themselves. Through the 1950s, Christian never stood still. He continuously evolved. The H-line in 1954 introduced a straighter, more minimal silhouette, proving elegance didn't always need excess. Then the A-line in 1955 became one of the most influential shapes in modern fashion history. Graceful, modern, and perfectly reflecting a woman becoming more independent and present in public life. Hollywood amplified everything. Ava Gardner, Marlene Dietrich, and Rita Hayworth wore Dior on screen and in public, turning the brand into fantasy and aspiration. The Miss Dior fragrance, launched in 1947 and named after his sister Katrine, added a whole new dimension, making Dior a complete luxury lifestyle, not just a couture house. But in 1957, the unthinkable happened. Christian Dior passed away suddenly at the age of 52. The fashion world was shaken to its core. In a historic decision, leadership was handed to a 21-year-old designer, Yves Saint Laurent, who had been personally mentored by Dior himself. His trapeze line collection in 1958 introduced a flowing silhouette that felt freer and more modern. It divided critics, but resonated deeply with women stepping into a rapidly changing world. However, political and personal pressures mounted. Saint Laurent was called into military service during the Algerian War, and upon his return, his time at Dior came to an end, leaving behind one of the shortest but most influential creative chapters in fashion history. Marc Bohan arrived in 1960 and led Dior for nearly 3 decades with a simple philosophy: preserve elegance, evolve carefully, never disrupt. He expanded Dior into ready-to-wear, fragrance, and accessories, quietly transforming it into a complete global luxury brand. Then, in 1989, Gianfranco Ferré, the first non-French designer to lead Dior, brought architectural boldness and theatrical grandeur back to the house, re-establishing its presence in high fashion. In 1996, John Galliano arrived and everything exploded. Runways became cinematic worlds. Collections drew from aristocracy, surrealist fantasy, and street rebellion reimagined as couture. Dior became a global media force. The Lady Dior bag, famously carried by Princess Diana, became an instant icon of modern royalty. But in 2011, Galliano was dismissed following a major controversy, ending one of the most visually explosive eras in fashion history. Raf Simons followed in 2012, bringing a minimal, architectural, and emotionally restrained vision. His debut collection honored Christian Dior's legacy while reinterpreting it for a modern generation, quiet, thoughtful, and deeply contemporary. Then, in 2016, history was made again when Maria Grazia Chiuri became the first female artistic director in Dior's history. Her collections carried powerful messages about feminism, identity, and empowerment. The "We Should All Be Feminists" t-shirt became a global cultural statement, proving that fashion could communicate social ideas as powerfully as any platform in the world. Today, Dior is not just a fashion house, it is a global luxury empire spanning couture, ready-to-wear, fragrance, beauty, and accessories. From Christian Dior's vision in Grand Vale to Galliano's fantasy worlds, to Simons' modern minimalism, to Chiuri's cultural expression, Dior has never stopped evolving. And that is exactly what makes it timeless. Because Dior is not just about clothing, it is about identity. It is about emotion. It is about how people see themselves across different eras of history. And even today, nearly a century later, the spirit of Christian Dior still lives inside every single collection.